thank you, Barry, for coming. Anyone meeting you for the first time, you're a psychologist, 20 years in the field, and you've recently stepped out of government services to build something of your own. Now
Yeah.
we've got a lot to get through here. So can you give us the 60-second, the 1 minute version of that story, please?
Yeah, sure. So I've worked, so 20 years and probably 13 years, well, 13 to 15 years of that's been in child protection, so working with children in out of home care. So I was always a bit of a shaker and a mover and trying to think outside the box. There's only so much that you can do outside the box when you're working in government. And so there was a time when I just had to figure out, there was sort of there was some moments and some things that happened that were signals for me that it's my time to move out. And then I had probably the last, 18 months thinking about how do I actually maximize my impact. And I've thought about all the different things that make me me. I've done a few programs and journeyed on that. And I've nailed this sort of zoom in to trauma transforming leadership. So helping the leaders in frontline trauma teams to, I guess, have their impact with their team and the kids that they serve. And so I could go and keep serving one kid at a time or one family at a time, or I could serve the people that serve the kids, but I've gone one level up and serve the leaders that lead the people that look after the kids. And so for me, that's like a missing piece in the support that exists for the whole world of trauma. And so I'm testing some products to see if other people agree with my sort of ideas. So that's probably that's the nutshell.
Okay, brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. All right, now your business is called Integrated Potential. We'll,
Yes,
we'll
that's
get
right.
we'll get the URL up in the chat at some point so people can go and find you. And your program is Trauma Transforming Leadership. So Barry, who exactly are you trying to reach, and who is the leader you built this for? I think you may have partially answered that question.
Yeah, so I guess I'm thinking about the leaders who have a team of practitioners, child safety officers, residential carers. So the leaders of the frontline team. So the team that they lead are serving directly with kids and young people and families in the child protection system. So kids and young people who've experienced trauma, kids and young people who are at home but more likely are going to be out of the home. So in residential care, foster care, kinship care. And so the team leader of that team has a tough gig because they're really a middle manager, can't please everybody, often experiencing pressure from both the front line but also from the powers that be. And so they're kind of a bit stuck in the middle and a bit of, I guess, at the mercy of what's happening for the kids under their care, but also what the upper echelon are directing and policy directions and instructions, and so they kind of can be a bit stuck in the middle. And so that's my when I think about the leader, I'm thinking about that person because they actually hold a significant amount of responsibility that's often unspoken. And they can, we talk a lot about the frontline child protection worker and what they're up to. But their functionality, the frontline worker, is largely dependent on how much stability the team leader can bring to that work environment. And so I think that a lot of them are flying a bit blind. They're flying a little bit dictated by what the management say, what policies say, what inquiries are telling them. And then the demands of the work and the spot fires and the crises that are happening. And so I guess the little zoom in of the kind of concept and program I'm developing is to help them stabilize in their leadership. Because if they can bring stability, like you can't wait for things to be all sorted above you. Things are never going to be sorted in the frontline work. So how can you hold stability amongst the crisis and when things are always going to be up and down? And so that's what I'm offering with my structure, with my process, with my course to help bring that sort of stability in that frontline work. So again, that's a big nutshell, but that's the nutshell.
Yeah, brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Okay, that's good. All right, we're doing well. We're making progress. So let's talk a little bit about your transition, Barry.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be the core for the Launchpad members who are on the call right now, who are going to be watching the
Mm,
recording.
Yeah.
What was the moment or the build up of moments that made you decide to step out and build something of your own rather than remaining in that system?
Yeah, so I guess the context of the system matters in that story. And then, so I guess my context was working in the Queensland government, so state government, working in a team that only supported children and young people in out of home care. So we were a mental health service, a state mental health service, and we service only kids in care. And so our whole world was trauma, teams, systems, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I mean, I was there for 13 years, and so I enjoyed the direct work with kids. I enjoyed the system work around the kid. I enjoyed trying to bring everybody together and trying to, rather than everyone just doing their own thing, schools doing their own thing, foster carers doing their own thing, the child safety doing their own thing, to bring everyone together for the sake of the kid and have some shared direction in the system. And so I really enjoyed that challenge because it was a huge challenge. I also enjoyed my role. So I moved into a role in the last sort of 5 to 7 years of training and development. So I sort of was operating in a both a clinical role but also a training and development role. So you can see this is kind of like the ducks are lining up for this next thing. So I had this kind of experience of being across both training and also the clinical work. The more I put my head in the training, the more I thought about what do I think about this? Where do I think things need to go? And keeping my sort of hand in the clinical work as well, I realized there was increasing dissonance between what was actually happening on the ground, what was able to happen, and also best practice and what could happen. And that just got me more and more frustrated. Because I guess as a psychologist, I don't like operating in not best practice. And so that just there were some moments in that sort of system where I found myself having to offer second or third or fourth best in terms of evidence-based intervention. So it came to a head probably, I think it's maybe about 2.5 years ago now, when I had this young person I was working with. And I don't know if anyone on the call is familiar with the push and pull of a trauma background, but you get these kids who they don't know whether they need you or they want to push you away. They want to be close, they want to be distant. There's this sort of tension between what they need from you as an adult because they've learnt that, sometimes it's good to trust people, but rarely does that turn out well. So they don't like risking trust. So I had this young person who I'd known for about 8 years, and she was giving me a bit of the get stuffed kind of language. She was giving me the don't need you, don't need your help, get lost. And I, in my perspective and thinking about her and what she needs, decided that actually that was not what she really meant. This was a test. This was a push me away to see if I would listen and nick off. And so I decided that in that moment, I would keep communicating like I'm still here. I hear what you're saying. I'm not going anywhere. And so in a world where there's a lot of stuff around consent or non-consent, especially in our government system, the idea of me supporting her when she said get stuffed could not compute for some of the powers that be. And so I got into a little bit of trouble for continuing to invest in caring for her, even though she said get stuffed. And so the reality is that most of the kids that we work with at some point tell us to go away. And so we've got to work out what that means and sort of navigate that. And then so I realized that in the system I was in, I could not care as much as I wanted to. I couldn't invest in people to the level they needed because there was too much red tape and too much misunderstanding of the groundwork, like what is really happening for this kid in the park where we were, in the conversation that we're having. No one up there has a clue about that. They don't know what's going on. They've just made a judgment call. They've seen it for whatever they want to see it for. They've caught on to a couple of their little catchphrases like consent. And so at that moment, I decided I need out. I need to be able to help people and serve people in a way that makes sense for me, and then actually in a way that's like legitimately helpful, almost like evidence-based helpful, without the constraints of people who are so far beyond and removed from the reality of what's going on, that they can't really be helpful. So I'd made the call, then I'm out, and it took me probably another 12 months to actually exit. So at that point, that's when I started my journey. I started looking into what is my unique offer? What am I really, if I'm going to go out there and put something out and I want to, it's a hill I might want to die on, what is it? And so the journey started, but I had to sort of sort out some things and work myself out in my job for another probably 12 months before I could actually cut the umbilical cord, and jump out and do like effectively. Didn't quite burn the ship. I can still go back if I need to. I've kept good graces, but I had to be in a position where I knew it was the right timing. And so I'm now 13. It was February last year when I resigned all of my employment. So that was the 20 years ended February last year. So now I'm a year and a month out. And so yeah, that was a pivotal moment. There was other little things along the way, and I sort of mentioned my training as a clinician, my experience in doing training and development, kind of just gave me this like little launch into what comes next. And it sort of seemed like the ducks lined up for this to happen last year. So yeah, that was one of the moments, but I think that's the key moment for me.
Yeah, good. So the people on the call, if there are questions that are coming up for you, if you get them typed into the chat, that would be useful. And we can we'll be opening this up to a Q&A with Barry towards the end of this little interview. But you describe yourself, Barry, as still being in the trenches, and the book launched in February this year. What's it actually like being in this stage where you're still building in public before everything is completely figured out?
Yeah, I'd say it's kind of exciting, scary. I'd say that's a good combo. It's until the book was launched, it's all just ideas in my own head, right? Like it's all just my ideation, my experience put together in something that like I look at and I go, gee, this is good. Like what a great book, what a great like process. If these people get their hands and get their understanding around this is life changing for a bunch of people. And then you hit release and you're like, I wonder if anyone else is going to agree with that. I wonder, because in my probably one of my biggest fears, this is interesting. This is me being like, open slate as a psychologist, is being judged by my profession. And so there are the people I'm going to help. And when I think about who is my true judges, well, it's going to be the kids and the young people who are being helped, and it's going to be the leaders who I'm helping. Everyone else, it doesn't actually matter what they think. However, when you are putting yourself out there as saying, this is me, this is my concept, and my concept is sort of based on what existing knowledge is, but it's also a little bit thought leaderish. So it's a little bit bold in terms of it is open for disagreement and different perspectives. And so I think in that little launch moment, I was like, oh, here we go. However, the beauty of the way that I launched, I didn't do a big publishing, releasing campaign. I didn't go on podcasts. It was quiet. It was Facebook. It was me and a targeted audience. And so is that my way of dealing with the fear? Launch softly? Maybe, but I think that's kind of also smart because I'd like to find out what my people think about it before I put it out there to reviews of from experts who like to say stuff, but I didn't write it for them. And so this process that I've gone through feels a little bit more reasonable. And so yeah, so I'm whatever that is, February, say March, April. Well, it's only a couple of months, isn't it? So I'm 2 months in. At least our stats are a bit tricky to measure, but 180 people I think have said, oh, okay. And if you look at Facebook, it tells me I've sold 400 copies. So I'm going to go with let's say it's up to 400, but I think that the other stat's probably more accurate. So at least let's call it 200 people have said, "Oh, this is interesting. This is something that I'm interested in." There's a lot of feedback that comes back through the face for my ads. So I've got ads structured in such a way that they look like I'm sharing a thought. And people are all commenting on just the ad and sharing the ad. Like it's such a bizarre thing. It hasn't happened before I've done this campaign. So there's plenty of interest. There's plenty of people going, yes, that's me 100%. I identify. So I've got validation from, well, there's probably 600 followers of my Facebook page. So I've got validation for the ideas from a small cohort. And so going from, is anyone going to like this or not? I'm now a little bit more confident that there is some interest, and I'm a little bit less nervous. And so I think I'm now at the point of going, all right, now what do they think? They're interested, and now I'm sort of at the point of getting some feedback. So still a little nervous. I don't know how people are going to respond, but I've had little moments of sort of confirmation, I guess, which I'll take and like stick it up on the wall.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm really loving your energy, Barry. I think this is brilliant. This is going to be inspirational for the people that are here and the people that are going to be watching the recording.
Good.
So what would you say has been the hardest internal shift? And I'm not talking about the sort of tech or whatever, but the
Mm.
mindset stuff. You've touched on this. You've spoken about thought leadership. What's been the hardest shift for you?
Um, for me, it's the transition from being protected in a government role to being vulnerable in the spotlight. And so, I can hide behind my role. I can be a little bit edgy in the government role, and then I can pull back and say, whoops, I went a bit too far. Um, but stepping out myself outside that protection, that was probably the hardest for me to actually make a decision that I am going to be a thought leader. Was quite intentional, and I use that language thought leader from one of the coaching sort of programs that I've learned from, which is called the Thought Leaders Institute. Because the more they talked about, you can either dabble or you can put yourself out there and say, this is what I'm about. And you don't have to impress everybody. It's only your crew that you actually need to be, getting some, traction with. So that was good for me to go, okay, I just need to work out, am I helpful for that group of people? And if so, then I'm going to put myself out there for their sake. Ultimately, it's for the kids and the young people's sake. That's my biggest mission. Secondary to that, I've got to help the people who help the people who help them. And so I've got this, this decision making, and I would say it's not a single decision point. The first decision point was, oh, I could write a book. I think I need to put my thoughts together. Actually, the first thing was a coaching program. So my first sort of product was a 5-step coaching program. Then I was inspired that might not be the first step. Maybe that's step 2 or 3. Step 1 is write a book. And so putting the book together was actually quite fun because you've got to distill your thoughts. You've got to sort of put them in order, and you've got to make them make sense. So that was quite actually a confidence builder probably for me to go, it's not just an idea in my head. It's not just airy fairy in the sky. It's actually a sequenced problem solver. And so I think that going from the decision to I'm going to step out into this to then articulating my thoughts and my, what I'm really thinking and how it all comes together. And looking at that and going, I really like that. I'm actually quite comfortable in the concept and the idea being put out there. So I guess I've got to put myself out there with it. So I think that was probably the biggest thing was that fear of moving into being seen and known versus kind of just a nice, helpful guy. Yep.
Yeah. I'm sure that's something that we've all had to face. For
Mm,
sure, for sure, for sure. So we had a little bit of email communication. There was a little bit of to and fro before this call, Barry, and you mentioned there were four themes that you highlighted, and the first one was on IP and the AI age. Now, and you said that in this AI age, your own IP is priceless.
yes.
That a
Yep.
book, a program, a step-by-step process is the foundation for everything for you.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
what does having your own IP protect you from and open up for you? Can you say a little bit more about that, please?
Yeah. So, just probably a side note that's probably a central note is that if, for example, you use complete AI to generate ideas, like a full book, for example, legally that's not copyrightable because legally you didn't write it. And so there is a difficulty in future protection of your ideas if you have lent heavily on generation before you have developed a product or an idea first. So I actually didn't come across that concept until later, but that's probably a thing to hold on to and to be careful about. So probably for me, the journey, and I've just learnt this as I've used different tools and I've expanded on my knowledge. Um, Once I have my ideas and my steps, I've realized that I can do a whole bunch of stuff with that. So once the ideas are there and sequenced and the language is there, for example, the book, I can now plug my book into any of the tools and I can say, based on my ideas, and I've done this with a GPT. So based on my ideas, write me a prompt or a code or whatever for a AI GPT thing that can help people do the things that my book needs them to help. And so I can create a GPT. Use my book content to structure a webinar and give me like step by step, and it structures it. And I look at it and go, yeah, that's what I would say. Like it actually is me. And it's actually like, I've nailed that quickly, but I look at it and go, that's not wanky AI talk. That's actually that's me and my expression coming out. And there's not a whole lot of tweaking I have to do for that. Or I can say, help me develop a short course. And out comes this sort of, outline of a short course, which is like, that actually marries up really well. And so I'm always confident in the link between what my original IP ideas are and there's stuff that I can then keep taking out to the world. And I'm not worried about someone saying that's my idea or where'd you get that from? Because you can't even back that up. Or what's your reference point? Well, my reference point is me, dude. Read my book. I don't need to then justify where I got stuff from. So for me, it feels very comfortable, feels very ethical. So yeah, that's probably, and I think the other thing that I learned probably in the early stages where I probably use a little bit more AI than myself was I then have to go back and tell it, fix it. And sometimes it takes a long time to get it to actually say what you're trying to get it to say and to sort of go backwards and forwards. So while it's miraculous, it also sometimes takes longer than just putting your thoughts out there. So lately, I've found it really useful to even write down my thoughts, even for like a video or something. I'll write it out first, and then I would either do a screenshot or then type it in to whatever ChatGPT or something. So because then my ideas are flowing and clear, and I did that recently for a webinar to get. I'm like, okay, I know that that's how I think. I've got my structure. Now polish it up for me. Excellent. It's my stuff. It's been polished and now it's producible. And then AI can kick in with all the social media and other things. And I'm confident it's come from this original idea. So that's probably the long and the short of it. But I think probably that back to the IP. Um, I have a model that's got a name. I have, and so people are going to be connecting the model with me. I have a step-by-step process, and I'm breaking out some of those into shorter courses. And this is all like effectively, it's all original me stuff. And so my leverage that I can use because I took the time to develop that is, I guess, it's almost infinite. And so for me, in terms of setting myself up as the thought leader, I've got this piece that says, well, I came up with the idea first myself. So I think that's a comfort, especially in this trust recession kind of world that we're in. So yeah.
Yeah, good. Okay. All right. So another one of the four themes was on becoming a key person of influence. And you mentioned that even for a small or specialized niche, for someone in our audience who feels like their expertise is too niche or too specific to build a business around, what would you say to them, Barry, in this regard on becoming a key person of influence?
Well, I would say that you got into your thing for some reason, um, and I think we can put ourselves in a silo to think that we're the only person interested in the stuff that we're interested in, and that might be true. Let's just say that it's a very specific niche that you're the only person who's interested in it. All right, there's probably not many that would be true for. But let's just say you don't want it to be the case. You really want to know there are other people out there who share my passion, my interest, what I'm into. How are you going to find them? The only way you're going to find out whether people are with you in your idea is to share your idea. So it's like it's. I don't like to use the word attraction marketing because it's not necessarily marketing, but it is attraction. It's not going and finding people, it's drawing people to you. So if you want to draw people to you, you've got to put yourself out there in a way that says, so this is what I'm thinking. This is my thought process. This is my little area that I'm like interested in. This is what I've learned about it. These are the processes I've followed. And the beauty of something like YouTube is that YouTube goes and does the algorithm stuff for you. So YouTube, you put up a short or something on YouTube, you don't have to go and pay ads and do all this other stuff. It will put it in front of people that it thinks might be interested. So great fishing expedition. You put up some stuff on YouTube with your kind of passionate, a little bit of clarity. Like you don't want to be too vague and tentative. You want to be a bit oomphy, like how good are cockroaches? I love cockroaches, like just the way that the shape of them, and like it's just fascinating. Like if it's cockroaches, put it out there with enthusiasm, and let the algorithm figure out other people out there who are as into cockroaches as you are, and who knows what comes up from that. So like, there's nothing to lose in emerging with your ideas, because you know what, if nobody in the world is interested, nobody's going to say anything. So you haven't been made a fool in front of anybody because nobody watched it. So for me, there is a benefit in finding out, are there people who think like me. I mean, YouTube is one, LinkedIn is another one, because in LinkedIn, you've got professionals who have particular interests, and you've got ways of finding them. You can actually search for, you can do like searches for that interest. So I think probably in terms of being a key person of influence, if that's too big for someone, just think about putting out there a key idea that might be influential. And you're on the video, it's your stuff. But if putting yourself out there as the thing is a bit much, just think about, your name's going to be on the video, and put out your idea. And what you're testing is there anyone out there who's into this? So I think that's pretty critical. And just in terms of that term, key person of influence, just to give credit where credit's due, Daniel Priestley is the guy who will talk about that. So he's talking about it from if you're going to grow and scale as a brand of any sort, it's not brands that win today. It's relying on you as a person who's known, liked, trusted. And so it is going to be really important for anyone who wants to make any future from the thing that they're doing, to start putting themselves out there as a real person, and I'm a person who you can see and interact with, and I'll respond to you. And so that's probably the motivating thing of it. There's a bunch of rubbish AI produced stuff. People want to engage with you and all your quirks and all your interesting ideas. They want to see real people. And so that's probably the other part of becoming and putting yourself out there as a key person of influence. Yeah.
With all your vulnerabilities and
All your
imperfections.
vulnerabilities.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And recently, Dan Priestley did something that many people like him don't do. He got real and personal, and he started sharing about some of his struggles and mistakes. And I think that's a great play. Like, you're not going to see an AI avatar sit there and talk about human vulnerability and emotional topics and losing your mum because they haven't experienced a day in their life, right? So, putting stuff out there that's your experience is going to keep you very non-AI, and that's really important.
Okay. What about on audience before selling? This is something else that you brought up. Build an audience, then sell to the audience. Now,
Yeah,
that's easy to say, but it's genuinely hard to do, especially when you're starting from scratch. So, what,
yeah.
what did that look like for you, Barry, in practice, and what moved the needle for you?
Yes. So I guess uh, firstly, where are your people and how do you find them? And so building an audience, again, it's a language we use that says, look at me. What we're not really like, look at you, look at your ideas. I'm not someone who's out there saying, look at me, I know everything. I just want to know where my people are. And so I'm putting out myself because I want to know, I want to split people up, those who don't give a rat's about what I've got to say and those who love it. And so there is I guess there's a journey of putting yourself out, and you'll see people will comment, they'll like, they'll respond, or they won't. And as you start to see that people respond, so whether this is, and I think there's a combo of organic and paid in terms of how you do this, but you might just start with like YouTube and just a Facebook page where you put stuff out. You're going to have to be a bit risky, like invite people to like you on Facebook, because you need a bit of numbers and momentum. And even if it's just your friends and family, just give it a crack, and try to get them to promote you a little bit. Just throw your bone. Like, people are pretty good. Then you start to get more people who are interested, not because they're your mates and your family, but they're actually seeing your stuff because it popped up on one of their friends' thing, who's one of your friends, and then you're starting to sort of draw people in. So that's just in likes and comments on stuff that you're putting out there. So that's a good start. And always inviting a person who likes or comments to like your Facebook page. So that's what I've done every time. I just go through everyone who's commented or liked or shared any of my posts, and I'll invite them, just keep them coming back to liking the page. And so there's probably about 200 people who have liked my page because they just decided to, and then there's 400 who have done it because I invited them to. And so I've built 600 people there, and then probably the big thing for me is having content to share in a for example, a free webinar. So putting out a free webinar, you might have to pay for advertising if you don't have your audience. You might have to you might just get your friends and family to share it on there. Depends on your topic. Free webinar, people register. Now you've got this whole list of people who are interested in your stuff. So you're starting to build people who are coming to you. You haven't gone and like hard search for them or tried to draw them in. You've just put some stuff out there and they've come in. So for me, a couple of things that work really well. One was a webinar, which I paid for advertising for. So my first webinar, thanks probably ChatGPT for helping me with my campaign. I had 180 people register for my first webinar, and I don't think I did a lot of hard work to set that up. I did some backwards and forwards of ChatGPT. 180 people. Okay, great. Now I've got a list of people who are interested. And then my next thing definitely was the book. So the current process that I'm on of building audience is wholly and solely, and the beauty of the book is it's for sale. So can I get my costs of ads down to match the price of the book? Well, not yet. But what's the value, lifetime value of the person who bought the book? Well, they might buy the book, but now they're not just an audience. They're now a paying. They bought what I've got to offer. So now they're in a different level. And so the next thing that I am going to offer them is a course. And they've already bought the book and they like the book. So they like me because they bought the book. Or maybe they don't. Maybe they don't like the book. Great. Goodbye. See you later. But hopefully they do. And then I'm going to say, would you like to do a course? And I'm now marketing to people who already like, know, and trust me. Way easier to get them to buy a course than the cold audience that I'm going to have to pay money for. This is free. I have a free audience of 600 plus 180 people. So maybe 700, 800 people who want what I'm offering in some way. And so there's the course, and then there's a few people buy the course. And then from the course, the next step is a 90-day coaching program, group coaching online, content, etc. So I'm going to offer that to everyone who's bought my book and everyone who's bought the course. I might do some cold selling as well, potentially, but much more likely that the 800 people who know me are going to be like, oh, yeah, 3 months with this guy. I've done little bits and pieces. Sounds like a good move. I'm in. And then from the 3 months, there's a 12-month program later on. So there's this build up of step by step taking them through. And actually, it makes a lot of sense. This step by step, it makes sense for them. So it's like, okay, would you like to check me out? It's going to cost you $10. All right, I'll check you out. $10. You've checked me out. Would you like to take the next step, which is actually you can watch me and listen to me and see if you were, if you like me as a person? Sure, $100, easy yes. And now they've spent time with me. Like, how much time have they read my book? They've spent time with me in the course. They're getting to know me as a person. So they're either out and get stuff that I don't want to hear from you again, or they are probably in for life. If they've gotten through that much content and they're still hanging around, chances are they're just wondering what my next step is. And so there I've got my audience that's building and growing. But for me, the key is that early stuff. So both organic and paid marketing, and having a product that is your product. And if it's a book that you can sell, or if it's something that you can sell, ideally, if you get your sales process right, the sales cover your marketing, and then you've just got free marketing, and you can just turn the tap up. Am I there yet? No, my leads, so my paid leads cost about $15 per lead. So I'm paying $5 effectively for every person who comes in. What's the lifetime value? Well, I'm not sure because it's too early to say. So a few people have upgraded immediately. So first purchase, they've bought the book, they've bought a GPT that I developed, and they've bought the short course for $100. So without meeting me or really hearing from me, except maybe a reel, they've spent $120 on a first purchase. So that's good signals. I'll just take that as good signals.
Okay. Okay. Good. We're gonna we've been running around about 40 minutes. I'm going to try and wrap this up fairly shortly in order that we can open up, to a Q&A. But look, this question's for the subscribers and anyone watching the replay who hasn't yet committed to building anything. Okay, Barry. So people who are interested in an additional or a replacement income stream but still sitting on the fence. So I want to ask you, for the people that are watching and listening who haven't taken that step yet, they have real expertise, often decades of it, but they're not sure if it's enough or if there's a market for it or whether they're too late to start. So what do you say to somebody in that position?
I would say that in the current world, there is a major gap between people who are wise and people who are doing stuff. There's a lot of people who are, and I think about this example with my program. There's a bunch of people who have a title team leader, and they might have even done the job for 5 or 10 years. but no one's actually paused to slow down with them and say, have you thought about slowing things down and doing these things to help you to live longer and to settle into your role and to help your team better? So they're 10 years, they're a veteran. They've been doing this all their career, but there's still something missing for them. And because I've given it 5 years worth of thought and I've distilled it down into a doable process, I've got something to offer that's valuable because I've given it lots of thought and I've actually invested time and energy into being as most helpful for them. You personally, I did all this so I could help you to be a better leader. That's compelling for the person who is in the trenches and is doing the work while you're stepping out wondering if you can help them. It's not a matter of if you can, it's just what are you passionate about and how can you help. And so the process, and I guess thinking about my process to start with, and this is how I think about problem solving, is how do I bring somebody from chaos to order? That's organizing. That's what business is. And that's what you will then save people time. You'll save people energy. You'll potentially save them finances or help them to build their business, depending on what your niche is. So I would say the you don't know is what I would say. You don't know how helpful you can be. So how are you going to find out? Well, the only way to find out is to put yourself out there in some way. So you've got to decide, how am I going to put myself out there? It's either I'm going to put myself out there by recording some content. I'm going to put myself out there by writing some of my thoughts down and developing something on paper. Whether it's my book is a field guide. It's called a field guide. I didn't write an academic piece. I didn't write a blah, blah, lots of references. I wrote a how to, A, B, C, D. And it's not a huge book. It's like 140 pages. You might go, that's a big book. It's not. It's quite compact as far as a book goes, but it's going to be helpful. So I would say start somewhere. And before you decide you can't help people, just have a think about what you could actually step out from chaos to order. What could you actually give people a 5-step process in, a 7-step process in, stuff that you know, and you look back at the people you work with and you went, geez, they keep stuffing that up. Like they just don't know what they're doing. Like these Muppets these days, they can't do this properly. That's probably your spot. It's just then organizing your knowledge and putting it out there and test it, because it's up to those people to decide whether you've got something to offer or not to you.
Mm. Yeah, perfect. Okay, look, we're going to get in the chat. We're going to get your book launch URL and the site integratedpotential.com. Is there anything that you want to add that we haven't covered? Something that you came into this conversation wanting to say, Barry?
No, I think it's been good. I probably one thing I'd add is just back to the start. My first step was whiteboards, lots of paper, and just brain dumping. So I think, we can get stuck in our heads in our desk at our computer. One of the coaches I sort of pay lots of attention to rarely does anything. The computer's the last thing. So get away from the computer, the screen, and go and write some stuff out and just see what your brain comes up. I think you'll surprise yourself about what your brain has inside it. And it might just be the thing that just comes out. So give yourself space, time, get away from the device, the screen. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Look, Barry, thank you genuinely